I can sit it hurts. That was the first thing 6-year-old Alara Quinn said that morning, standing in the middle of a quiet elementary classroom in a small town in Ohio. Her backpack was still hanging off one shoulder, her fingers gripping the straps like she needed something to hold on to. Around her, the room buzzed with normal life. Kids laughing, chairs scraping, pencils dropping, but she didn't move. She didn't sit. She just stood there, frozen. Mr. Callum Reese noticed immediately. He had been arranging papers at his desk when her voice cut through the noise. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But there was something in it, something tight, something wrong, that made him stop mid-motion. He looked up and saw her, pale, still, eyes locked on the floor like it was safer than looking at anyone. He walked over slowly, lowering himself to her level so he wouldn't scare her. "Hey, Alara," he said gently. "What's going on?" She bit her lip. Hard. Her shoulders lifted slightly, like she was bracing for something. Then she shook her head, almost automatically. "It hurts when I sit," she whispered. "Not I fell. Not I got hurt." Just that. Callum frowned, but kept his voice calm. "Did you fall somewhere? At home maybe?" No answer. Her hands tightened into small fists, knuckles pale. She didn't look at him. She didn't look at anyone. It was the kind of silence that wasn't empty, it was full of fear. "Hey," he said softer, "you can tell me. You're not in trouble." She hesitated. For a second, it looked like she might speak. Her lips parted slightly, her breath shaky, and then she closed down again. "It just hurts," she repeated. That was it. But something inside Callum shifted. It wasn't just the words. It was the way she stood, too stiff, too careful. The way she refused to sit, even when he offered to move her to a quiet corner. The way her eyes kept darting to the door, like she was afraid someone might walk in. "Can I just stand?" she asked quietly, almost pleading. "Please." That word, please, hit harder than anything else. Callum nodded immediately. "Of course. You can do whatever you need, okay?" She gave the smallest nod in return, but didn't relax. Not even a little. And that's when he knew. There were no bruises he could see. No blood. No clear story. Nothing he could point to and say, "This is what happened." But every instinct in him was screaming the same thing. Something is very, very wrong. He stepped out into the hallway, his heart suddenly pounding harder than it should. His hands felt cold as he pulled out his phone. For a second, he hesitated. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was overreacting. Then he pictured her again, standing there, refusing to sit, eyes full of something no 6-year-old should carry. He didn't hesitate anymore. He dialed. "This is Callum Reese," he said when the line picked up, his voice steady but low. "I'm a teacher at Maple Grove Elementary. I have a student 6 years old. She says she can't sit because it hurts. I can't confirm anything, but something is off. I need someone to come check this out." There was a pause on the other end. Questions. Protocol. But Callum barely heard them. All he could think about was the way Alara had said it. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet enough to almost be ignored. And he realized something that made his stomach twist. If he ignored it too, no one else would hear her at all. The police arrived just after 8:30 a.m., quietly, without sirens. 2 officers stepped out of the patrol car, one man, one woman, moving with the calm routine of people who had seen too many calls that turned out to be nothing. From the outside, it looked like a normal check. Inside, Callum felt like the air had changed. Principal Marla Hensley met them at the entrance, already adjusting her blazer, her voice polite but tight. "Good morning, officers," she said. "I believe this may be a bit of an overreaction. Kids say things all the time. The male officer nodded slightly, but didn't respond. The female officer's eyes had already shifted past her, focused on the classroom door down the hall. They walked in. Callum was waiting. She refused to sit, he said immediately, not wasting time. She said it hurts. The way she said it didn't feel normal. Marla sighed behind him. Callum, please. She's 6. It could be anything, a fall, a bruise. He didn't turn around. He didn't answer her. He kept his eyes on the officers. She's scared, he added quietly. That made the female officer pause. Let's talk to her, she said. They brought Elara into a small coordination room. She walked in slowly, each step careful, like the ground itself might hurt her. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, shoulders slightly raised, eyes scanning the room before settling on the floor again. The female officer crouched down in front of her, softening her voice. Hey there, sweetheart. My name is Officer Grant. We just want to talk a little, okay? Elara nodded. But she didn't speak. Your teacher said you felt pain when you sat down, the officer continued gently. Can you tell me what happened? Silence. Elara's fingers twisted together. Her lips pressed tight. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back down. Callum stood near the wall, watching, his chest tight. He could see it, clear as anything. Fear. Not confusion. Not embarrassment. Fear. It's okay, Officer Grant said. You're not in trouble. We just want to help. Elara hesitated. For a moment, it looked like the words might come out. Then she whispered, barely audible. I'm okay now. The words hit the room like a quiet explosion. Callum's stomach dropped. No. That wasn't right. That wasn't the same child from 10 minutes ago. That wasn't the same voice. She's scared, he said again, this time more firmly. But no one responded. The male officer cleared his throat, stepping back slightly. The room shifted. The moment passed. After a few more gentle attempts, the officers stepped outside. No visible injuries, the man said. No prior reports. And she's not disclosing anything. Callum felt frustration rise in his chest. But you can see it, she's terrified. The female officer looked at him, her expression softer now, but still restrained by procedure. I believe you, she said quietly. But we need something concrete. If anything changes, anything at all, you call us again. Immediately. That's it? Callum asked, his voice tightening. For now, she answered. They left. Just like that. The patrol car pulled away. The hallway returned to normal. Doors opened. Voices filled the space again. Like nothing had happened. Elara went back to class. She stood beside her desk again. She didn't sit. Not once. Callum watched her the entire day. Every movement she made was careful. Controlled. Like she was trying not to trigger something invisible. When other kids laughed too loudly, she flinched slightly. When someone brushed past her chair, she stepped back too quickly. And still she said nothing. Later that afternoon, Principal Marla stepped into his classroom. You need to be more careful, Callum, she said, her tone low but sharp. Calling the police without solid evidence creates unnecessary panic. It reflects on the school. He looked up at her slowly. A 6-year-old is afraid to sit down, he replied. That's not nothing. Marla crossed her arms. And yet there's no proof of anything serious. He didn't answer. Because deep down, he already understood the truth no one else wanted to admit. Sometimes the most dangerous situations leave no obvious marks. That night, Callum didn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her again, standing there, small and silent, holding something in that no child should ever have to carry. There were no screams. No bruises he could prove. No confession. Just a quiet sentence that refused to leave his head. I can sit it hurts. And the worst part? He knew that if he stopped pushing, if he let it go, even for a moment, she would disappear back into that silence. And no one would come looking. The next morning, Callum arrived earlier than usual. He didn't go to the office. He didn't look for the principal. He went straight to his classroom, unlocked the door, and stood there for a moment in the quiet. The desks were exactly where they had been the day before. Nothing had changed. Except everything had. He opened the windows, letting in the cold Ohio morning air, hoping it would clear his head. It didn't. The same thought kept circling back, over and over. She tried to say something, and then she stopped. When the students began to arrive, he greeted them like always. Same smile, same tone, but his eyes were searching for one person. Elara came in last. No eye contact. No greeting. No hesitation either. She walked straight to her desk and stopped. She didn't sit. Again. Can I do my work standing? She asked quietly, almost rehearsed. Callum nodded immediately. Of course. However you're comfortable. Comfortable. The word felt wrong the second he said it. Because there was nothing comfortable about the way she stood, weight shifting slightly, body tense, like the chair behind her wasn't furniture but something to fear. That morning's activity was simple. Draw a place you know well, Callum told the class, keeping his voice light. Anywhere you've been before. Your house, a park, your grandma's place, anything. The room filled with excitement. Kids grabbed crayons, talking over each other, already imagining their drawings. Except Elara. She picked up a pencil. Not crayons. Not colors. Just a pencil. And she started drawing in silence. No distractions. No pauses. Her small hand moved steadily across the paper, her face completely blank. Too focused, too serious for a child her age. Callum noticed. He walked around the room, stopping at each desk, smiling, encouraging, pointing out little details. Nice tree, Mason. Wow, Ava, that's a big dog. Normal. Safe. Predictable. Then he reached Elara. Her paper was turned face down. That alone made him pause. Hey, he said softly, kneeling beside her. Finished already? She nodded. Can I see? A hesitation. Small. Almost invisible. Then she slid the paper toward him. Callum turned it over. And everything inside him went cold. In the center of the page was a chair. Just a chair. But around it, scattered, uneven, drawn with shaking lines, were dark marks. Not scribbles. Not random. They looked like drops. Stains. Something deliberate. There was no color, but it didn't need any. He knew what it was supposed to be. And suddenly, the sentence from yesterday came rushing back louder than ever. I can sit it hurts. His fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the paper. He didn't react outwardly. He couldn't. But inside, something snapped into place. This wasn't confusion anymore. This wasn't a maybe. This was a message. He lowered the paper slowly and looked at her. This is yours, he asked gently. She nodded. Do you want to tell me about it? She bit her lip again, the same way she had the day before. Her eyes flickered up to meet his for just a second, then dropped. No words. Callum didn't push. He couldn't. Okay, he said softly. You don't have to explain right now. For a moment, Neither of them moved. Then, something shifted. Elara looked up again, this time a little longer, and said in a quiet, almost fragile voice, "I like how you talk to me." The words hit harder than anything else. Callum felt his throat tighten. "And I like how you draw," he replied, just as softly. He folded the paper carefully. Not like a piece of homework. Like evidence. Because that's what it was now. When the class ended, he didn't hesitate. He walked straight out of the room, the drawing in his hand, and headed down the hall to the school counselor's office. Dr. Lena Whitaker looked up as he entered. He didn't say a word. He just placed the drawing on her desk. She studied it. At first, her expression was neutral, professional, analytical. Then it changed. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Her posture stiffened. "This is symbolic," she said slowly. Callum waited. She looked up at him. "But it's not random," she added. "And it's not harmless." "How bad?" he asked. She held his gaze. "Serious," she said. "Very serious." The word hung in the air. Callum exhaled slowly. "I knew it." "She's trying to communicate something," Lena continued. "But she's afraid to say it directly. That drawing, it's not imagination. It's experience." Callum's jaw tightened. "Then we act," he said. Lena nodded. "Yes. But carefully." She leaned forward slightly. "You've already built some trust with her," she said. "That matters. You might be the only person she feels safe enough to open up to." That thought landed heavy. Not comforting. Terrifying. Because it meant one thing. If he failed, there might not be another chance. Lena reached for a blank sheet of paper and handed it to him. "Give her this," she said. "Tell her she can draw anything she wants. No pressure. No questions. Just let her speak the way she's able to." Callum took the paper. On the corner, he wrote a simple sentence. "If you want to tell me something, you can draw it. No demands. No fear. Just a door left open." Later that day, he handed it to Elara. She looked at it carefully. Then, for the first time since he had met her, she smiled. It was small. Barely there. But it was real. And in that moment, Callum understood something clearly. She was starting to trust him. And whatever she was carrying was finally beginning to come out. By Friday afternoon, the sky hung low over Maple Grove Elementary, heavy and gray, like something was about to break. Inside the classroom, everything looked normal. Too normal. Kids packed their bags, chairs scraped across the floor, voices filled the room with end-of-week excitement. But Elara stayed close to Callum all day. Not speaking much, not asking questions, just staying near him, like distance itself felt dangerous. Every time she shifted, there was that same stiffness. That same careful movement, like sitting, or even relaxing, came with a cost. Callum noticed everything. He didn't push her. He didn't rush her. But he watched. Always. When the final bell rang, the room emptied quickly. Parents waited outside the gate. Engines idled. Laughter echoed down the hall. Then Callum saw him. A man leaning against the metal fence outside the school. Tall. Broad shoulders. Arms crossed tight across his chest. His posture wasn't relaxed. It was controlled. Watching. Waiting. There was no warmth in his face. No softness. Just impatience. Callum felt it immediately. Something about him didn't fit. "Your guardian's here," a staff member called from the hallway. Elara froze. Not paused. Not surprised. Frozen. Her shoulders locked. Her small hands tightened at her sides. The faint, fragile calm she had built over the past few days disappeared instantly. Callum stepped closer. "It's okay," he said quietly. But she didn't answer. She just walked. Slow steps. Head down. No resistance, just submission. That was worse. Way worse. Callum followed at a distance, his eyes never leaving them. As they reached the gate, the man straightened up. "Let's go," he snapped, his voice sharp, impatient. "Move." No greeting. No smile. No acknowledgement that this was a child. Elara didn't look up. She didn't reach for him. She just walked past him like she already knew what came next. Callum stepped in. "Excuse me," he said, keeping his voice controlled. "Are you Elara's father?" The man turned slowly. His eyes were cold. Measuring. "Stepfather," he replied. "Who are you?" "Callum Reese. I'm her teacher." A pause. A long one. The man raised an eyebrow slightly, like he was already annoyed. "And?" Callum held his ground. "I just want to make sure she's okay," he said. "She's been complaining about pain when sitting. It's concerning." For a second, nothing moved. Then the man smirked. Not amused. Dismissive. "Kids say a lot of things," he said. "You should focus on teaching, not sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." The words were casual. Too casual. Like this conversation meant nothing. Callum felt heat rise in his chest, but he didn't react. "I am doing my job," he said, steady. The man stared at him for a few seconds longer. Then, without another word, he turned, grabbing Elara by the arm. Not violently. But not gently either. Enough to make a point. She didn't resist. Didn't speak. Didn't even look back. Callum stood there, watching them walk away. Every step felt wrong. Every instinct in him screamed the same thing. That man is the reason. He stayed there long after they disappeared down the street. Long enough for the parking lot to empty. Long enough for the silence to return. But the feeling didn't leave. That evening, he couldn't take it anymore. He pulled Elara's emergency contact file and dialed the number listed for her mother. It rang twice. Then a woman answered. "Hello." "Hi, this is Callum Reese, Elara's teacher from Maple Grove Elementary." A pause. Then, cautious. "Is everything okay?" "I wanted to talk about Elara," he said carefully. "She's been showing signs of discomfort and fear. Especially today when her stepfather arrived." Silence. Not confusion. Not concern. Silence. Then a quick exhale. "She's sensitive," the woman said. "She gets scared easily. It's a new school. She just needs time to adjust." Callum tightened his grip on the phone. "I understand," he said. "But the physical pain." "She's fine," the woman cut in, a little sharper now. "Everything is under control." Another pause. Shorter this time. More final. "There's nothing to worry about," she added. Then the call ended. Just like that. Callum lowered the phone slowly. His chest felt heavy. Because now he knew something else. The mother knew. Maybe not everything. Maybe not clearly. But enough. Enough to choose silence. That night, Callum didn't sit still. He paced his apartment, replaying every moment. Elara's voice, the drawing, the way she froze at the gate, the man's grip on her arm, the mother's dismissive tone. Piece by piece, it all started to connect. Not as suspicion anymore. As a pattern. And patterns don't lie. By Saturday morning, the decision was already made. No permission. No waiting. No more, not enough evidence. He grabbed a clipboard, a few school papers, anything to make it look official, and headed out. The address from the file led him to a narrow street on the edge of town. Small houses. Faded paint. Curtains drawn. The kind of place where things stayed hidden because no one asked questions. He found the house. The windows were covered. The front yard empty. No toys. No signs of a child living there. Callum knocked. Once. Twice. The door creaked open. A boy stood there. Around 10 years old. Thin. Tired eyes. Oversized shirt hanging loosely off his frame. "Hi," Callum said gently. "Is Elara home?" The boy shook his head. "No," he said. "She went with him." Him. Callum crouched down slightly. "What's your name?" "Jonah." "Jonah, Elara's teacher." The boy nodded, but didn't seem surprised. That alone said something. "Is your mom here?" Callum asked. Jonah glanced inside the house. "She's sleeping." Callum looked past him. The living room was dim, even though it was nearly noon. Furniture worn down. The air felt heavy. Too quiet. "Do you go to school, Jonah?" he asked. The boy shrugged. "I used to." Used to. Callum felt something twist in his chest. "Can I ask you something?" he said carefully. Jonah hesitated, then nodded. "When Elara cries," Callum said, "what happens?" The boy's eyes dropped. Silence. Then, quietly, "He doesn't like it." Callum's pulse quickened. "Who?" Jonah swallowed. "Darren." The name landed hard. "What does he do when she cries?" Callum asked. Another hesitation. Then the boy said it like it was normal. Like it was routine. "He uses his belt," Jonah said. "Sometimes he yells. Sometimes worse." The world seemed to narrow around Callum. "Does anyone know about this?" he asked. Jonah shook his head quickly. "No. If we tell Mom leaves. And then we're alone." That sentence hit deeper than anything else. Fear didn't just control the children. It controlled the mother too. Callum closed his eyes for a second. Just one. Because now there was no doubt left. No uncertainty. No maybe. There was a name. A method. A pattern. And a child who had been telling the truth all along. When he stood up, everything inside him had changed. This wasn't concern anymore. This wasn't suspicion. This was a line that had been crossed. And he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was not going to let her go back into that house unnoticed again. By Monday morning, Callum wasn't guessing anymore. He walked into Maple Grove Elementary with a folder under his arm, thin on paper, heavy in meaning. Inside were Elara's drawing, his notes from days of watching her, and every word Jonah had said about Darren and the belt. It still didn't feel like enough. But it was everything he had. During recess, he didn't hesitate. He got in his car and drove straight to Child Protective Services. The waiting room was nearly empty. A fan hummed in the corner, pushing warm air in slow circles. Everything felt slow. Too slow. When his name was called, he stepped into a small office where a social worker sat behind a desk, pen ready. Callum laid everything out. Calm. Clear. Präzise. He described Elara's refusal to sit. Her fear. The drawing. The way she froze at the sight of her stepfather. The conversation with Jonah. Every detail. The social worker listened, nodding, taking notes, her expression serious, but restrained. When he finished, there was a pause. Then she sighed. "I understand your concern," she said. And yes, these are strong indicators. But legally, we still need more. Callum blinked. More? He repeated. No confirmed medical report. No direct disclosure from the child in an official setting. No visible injuries documented, she explained. Without that, it's difficult to intervene immediately. Callum felt something inside him snap tight. She said it hurts to sit, he said, his voice rising despite himself. Her brother described physical punishment. How much clearer does it need to be? The social worker didn't flinch. I'm not saying you're wrong, she said. I'm saying the system requires proof. Proof. The word echoed in his head like something hollow. So we wait? He asked. Wait for what? For it to get worse. She didn't answer that directly. We monitor, she said. If new evidence appears, anything concrete, we act fast. Callum stood there for a second, fists clenched at his sides. Then he nodded. Not because he agreed. Because he understood something now. No one was coming to save her unless he forced the truth into the open. That afternoon, he went straight to Dr. Lena Whitaker. She needs to talk, he said. And it needs to count. Lena didn't argue. I've been thinking the same, she said. But it has to be done carefully. No pressure. No interrogación. She reached into her drawer and pulled out a small recording device. If she's willing to speak, Lena said, and we document it properly, it could be enough. Callum hesitated. I don't want her to feel trapped, he said. She won't, Lena replied. We'll make it safe. That same day, after recess, they called Elara into the counseling room. The space was quiet. Soft lighting. A table with paper and colored pencils already set out. No uniforms. No pressure. Just calm. Elara stepped in slowly, eyes scanning the room like always. Callum was already seated, keeping himself low, non-threatening. Hey, he said gently. We just wanted to hang out for a bit. Lena smiled warmly. Nothing serious, she added. We just like talking to you. Elara nodded. She sat. Carefully. Right on the edge of the chair. Like she was ready to stand again at any second. Lena turned on the recorder, placing it gently on the table. We're just recording so we don't forget what we talk about, she explained softly. Is that okay? A small pause. Then Elara nodded again. Okay, Lena said. Tell me something. Do you draw more when you're happy or when you're sad? Elara looked down at the paper in front of her. When I'm sad, she said quietly. The room stilled. Callum didn't move. Lena kept her voice steady. What makes you feel sad? A long silence. Elara picked up a pencil and started tracing small lines on the paper. Then, almost like the words slipped out before she could stop them. When he gets mad. Callum's heart pounded. Who? He asked gently. Elara didn't look up. Darren. There it was. Out loud. Real. Lena leaned forward slightly. What happens when he gets mad? Elara's hand kept moving, drawing nothing recognizable. He yells, she said. He tells me to be quiet. He puts me in the corner. Her voice got smaller. And sometimes he uses the belt. The air in the room changed. Callum felt it physically. Like something had finally broken open. Lena didn't interrupt. You know that's not okay, right? She said softly. No one is allowed to hurt you. Elara's pencil stopped. He does it even when I'm quiet, she whispered. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Because it meant there was no escape. No way for her to avoid it. No rule she could follow to stay safe. Callum swallowed hard, his throat tight. He moved a little closer, lowering himself to her level. "Elara," he said, his voice steady but firm, "none of this is your fault. Not one part of it." She looked at him. Really looked this time. Not scared. Not frozen. Just tired. Like she had been carrying this for too long. Lena reached over and gently turned off the recorder. No rush. No sudden movements. Just quiet confirmation. They had it. The truth. Clear. Undeniable. That evening, Callum walked out of the school with the recording in his pocket. It felt heavier than anything he had carried before. Because now, no one could say they didn't know. No one could look away. The next morning, everything moved fast. Reports were filed. Evidence submitted. The system that had demanded proof finally had it. And for the first time since this started, Callum wasn't asking anymore. He was demanding. Because now there was no silence left to hide behind. Only truth. And it was louder than ever. Everything changed on a Tuesday. Elara walked into school wearing a sweater that didn't match the weather. It was warmer than usual, but she kept it on, sleeves pulled down too far, shoulders slightly hunched. Callum noticed the moment she stepped through the door. Something was different. Not just the silence, he was used to that now. It was the way she moved. Slower. More careful. Like every step hurt. "Hey, Elara," he said gently. She nodded, but didn't speak. When she reached her desk, she hesitated longer than usual. Her hand hovered near the chair, then pulled back. She stayed standing. Again. But this time, it wasn't just fear. It was pain. Callum felt it immediately. During the morning activity, she barely participated. When he asked her to join a group at the front, she froze. "Do you want me to come to you instead?" he offered. She nodded quickly. Too quickly. That was enough. At recess, he saw it. She was alone in the corner of the playground, trying to adjust her sweater. For just a second, 1 second too long, the fabric lifted. And there it was. Bruises. Dark. Fresh. Spread across her lower back. Not old. Not fading. Recent. Callum didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight back inside, pulled out his phone, and dialed. "This is Callum Reese from Maple Grove Elementary," he said, his voice sharp and controlled. "I need officers here immediately." The same student. Visible injuries. This is confirmed. This time, there were no questions. Nothy less. "No," he said when the operator asked him to stay on the line. "Just get here." He hung up. His hands were shaking, but not from doubt. From urgency. He went back outside, crouched beside Elara. "Hey," he said softly. "Can we go talk for a bit?" She looked at him, eyes searching. Then nodded. He walked her inside, straight to Lena's office. Lena took one look at her, and knew. No words needed. They kept things calm. Quiet. Safe. But beneath it, everything was moving fast. Within minutes, the patrol car arrived. This time, it wasn't routine. The same officers stepped in, but their expressions were different now. Focused. Serious. "What do we have?" the male officer asked. Callum didn't soften it. Visible bruising. Lower back. Fresh. The officer nodded once. "That's enough." No debate. No hesitation. They followed protocol quickly. Documentation, immediate medical referral, formal report. Elara was taken to a nearby clinic that same hour. Callum didn't go with her. He stayed behind, standing in the empty hallway, staring at nothing. Because even though this was what he had been fighting for, It still felt too late. We got here, Lena said quietly, stepping beside him. Callum exhaled slowly. We got here after it happened again, he replied. That silence between them said everything. But for the first time, something real was finally being done. That night, Elara didn't go home. After the medical report confirmed the injuries and the recorded testimony was submitted, emergency protective custody was issued. A patrol car drove her to a child shelter across town. Safe. Temporary. Necessary. She sat in the back seat, holding her small notebook tightly against her chest. The same one she always carried. The one filled with drawings no one had understood until now. When they arrived, a social worker opened the door. "Hey, Elara," she said gently. "You're safe here." Elara stepped out slowly. She looked at the building, plain, white, unfamiliar. "Is my brother here?" she asked quietly. "Not yet," the woman answered softly. "But we're working on that." Elara nodded. No tears. Not yet. Inside, the room was clean. 2 beds. Blank walls. The smell of disinfectant in the air. Too quiet. Too empty. She sat on the edge of the bed. And finally, the tears came. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet crying. The kind she had learned to do so no one would hear. The next day, Callum went to see her. He brought a small bag, paper, colored pencils, and a children's book. When he walked into the reading room, she was sitting on the floor, knees pulled in, arms wrapped around them. She looked up. And something changed in her eyes. Not fear. Relief. "Hey," he said, sitting down beside her. "Hi," she whispered. He held up the bag. "I brought you something." She reached for it carefully, like it mattered more than it should. "Can I keep it?" she asked. "Of course," he said. "It's yours." She opened it, pulling out the pencils one by one. Then she paused. "Does he know where I am?" she asked. Callum understood immediately. "No," he said firmly. "And even if he did, he can't hurt you anymore." She looked at him. Really looked. "Are you sure?" she asked. He didn't hesitate. "Yes." She nodded slowly. Then, without another word, she leaned her head against his shoulder. And for the first time, she relaxed. Not fully. Not completely. But enough. Enough to breathe. When he left, he gave her a folded note. "When you're scared," it read, "draw. And remember, I'm here." That night, for the first time in a long time, no one yelled. No one hit. No one told her to be quiet. Days passed. The investigation moved fast now. Police tracked Darren. Reports built. Evidence stacked. Recordings, medical findings, testimonies. There was no hiding anymore. Then, one afternoon, Callum got the call. Suspect in custody. Darren had been found at a workshop on the edge of town. He tried to run. He didn't get far. As they took him away, shouting, denying, resisting. Elara wasn't there. But she didn't need to be. Because the fear that had followed her everywhere was finally being taken somewhere else. Far away from her. Weeks later, the courtroom was quiet. Elara sat small in her seat, feet barely touching the floor, a tiny star pin clipped to her dress, something Callum had given her. The judge spoke gently. "Tell us how you felt." Elara took a breath. "I was scared," she said, "even when it was quiet." Silence filled the room. "Did you think it was your fault?" the judge asked. She nodded. "Until someone told me it wasn't." Her eyes moved, just slightly, toward Callum. That was enough. When it was over, when the decision was made, when Darren was sentenced and barred from ever coming near her again, something shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But permanently. A few weeks later, Elara walked back into the classroom. Same room. Same desk. Same chair. She stopped in front of it. For a second, everything seemed to pause. Callum watched from the front of the room, holding his breath without realizing it. Elara looked at the chair. The same one she couldn't sit in. The same one that had once meant pain. Fear. Silence. Then, she pulled it out. Slowly. Sat down. And smiled. "It doesn't hurt anymore," she said. Callum felt his chest tighten. "I know," he replied softly. The class went on. Normal. Quiet. Safe. But something in that room had changed forever. Because now, she wasn't standing anymore. She was finally at peace.